What's up, guys? Coming at you from Shenzhen as usual, and we're going to get right into a drive around. And what we're going to do, well, I'm going to record this audio separate from the drive around because I'm going to take my kids out with me too. They've been stuck at home for, I don't even know how many weeks, but they're going crazy. So I just want to take them for a quick drive around. And I know that when they're in the car, they are not going to stay quiet. So that's why I've got to do this audio separately. But where we're going to go, I'm not exactly sure yet. Probably I'll drive through some of the high-tech office areas because usually by this time people have already come back from Chinese New Year and it is quite busy in those kinds of neighborhoods. But of course, what I'm expecting to see is that it's still not busy, that it's still quite dead because Chinese New Year has been extended. A lot of offices haven't gone back to work and you need to register to come back into Shenzhen. Registration is pretty easy, but nonetheless, these are going to be things that expect me or put me at in a position where I'm expecting to see not too much traffic out there. I did see something on Shenzhen Bay today, Shenzhen Bay on the water, that made me very happy, which was a sailboat. I love sailing. I used to have a sailboat in Canada. It was a McGregor 26-foot, I think, water ballast sailboat. So basically you can pull it out of the water and you can trailer it anywhere you want, which is really handy in Ontario with so many different Great Lakes you can take it to. I'm not Great Lakes as in the Great Lakes, many wonderful lakes, I should say. Great Lakes is something completely different. But in Shenzhen, it's a little bit more difficult to own a sailboat because you're kind of on the border with Hong Kong, and obviously there's immigration control in terms of when you leave China, you have to go through exit customs. So there's all kinds of, I think there's licenses or something. I haven't figured it out. But I do have a small hobby craft that I got from Austria. It's made in Austria. It's really, really fun. It's a little portable thing that folds up. I'll put a picture up so that you guys can see what it looks like. But that's pretty much the extent of my sailing now here in China. So what do I want to talk about? So there's one quick thing I want to mention, and I'll preface it by saying it's not confirmed, it's not peer-reviewed, but there was something that popped up on my Twitter that was quite concerning. I don't have it in front of me now. I should have probably pulled it up first. But what it was a report saying that previously they estimated the R0 for this virus, how many people basically one person could spread it to, was around the 2.2 range. And now this report is suggesting that it's as high as 4 point something up to 6.6, somewhere around that range, which is incredibly high and very difficult to contain no matter what you can do. If there's any way to contain it, it's by what we're doing here in China right now. But I'm really hoping that that report is not true. The other thing I want to mention is kind of a reflection on some of the topics I spoke about before. You know, I was kind of taken out of my bubble by some people who said those media kind of those news reports that I'm seeing, which are overly xenophobic or contains conspiracy theories, it actually isn't very representative of mainstream media. Those are kind of coming from a lot of the Hong Kong and Taiwanese news outlets. And I was pleased to find out that that was indeed the truth. However, you know, some bits and pieces do make its way through to the mainstream Western media also, but by no means it's a reason to characterize them all as kind of doing this. And as a matter of fact, New York Times even came out with an article specifically calling out the stereotypes, saying that these stereotypes about China, saying that a lot of disease is coming from here and that it's unhygienic or whatever it is actually, they're incorrect stereotypes. They're actually doing a lot more than many other countries. But the interesting thing that happened was when whoever is in the New York Times Twitter department or whatever it is, whoever's responsible for posting the article on Twitter, what they did was they posted it and did the exact same thing. They made a mistake. They probably misread the article, and they did the exact same thing that the article was accusing people of doing. And their caption was, "A lot of epidemics seem to come out of China, reinforcing its historical reputation as an incubator of deadly diseases. Whether that reputation is really justified, however, is open to debate." So what they had to do is they had to delete it in the end, and they had to apologize. And they said, "We're sorry that tweet misrepresented our reporting." It's still pretty unfortunate that that managed to sneak its way through. It's probably more representative of the person who was writing the tweet than the New York Times itself. But nonetheless, I did have a lot of people that reached out to me after my last video where I did speak about this xenophobia, racism, and identity. And there were a lot of touching stories and sad stories. One was of somebody who said they don't usually leave messages or comments on YouTube. It's pretty much their first comment, and they had to let me know that literally just days before my video, or even that day I think it was. I'm receiving a lot of messages, so I'm just kind of recalling it by memory. But her 5-year-old daughter was targeted and kind of bullied and called a virus or something along the lines of that, which was really sad. And I mean, I've experienced little bits and pieces of racism growing up, and I'm glad I experienced it because it helps you grow, it helps you think about these things. And then in the case of the story that I shared last time about the Indian lady who wanted to connect with me and hoping that I would look out for her son, it also provides examples of what kinds of things you never want to find yourself regretting again in the future, and putting you in a situation where you speak up rather than kind of just letting it go, which kind of guides a little bit of the reason I speak about some of this stuff. But nonetheless, these things do affect kids. And, probably the tendency is to say, okay, whatever, they're young and they'll get over it. It's not really important, but the truth is these things do really start to affect you. And to give you an example in the opposite direction, I remember Oprah Winfrey was saying something before, many years ago. I can't remember what it was on, but she said that when she was around that same age, I think it was 5 or 6 year old range, there was an older white lady who came up to her and said, "You're just as cute as a button." And it did something to her. It kind of it shocked her, because before that point, she never imagined that as an African-American girl, she could be considered beautiful or pretty or valuable by society. And that really helped shift something in her mind. Even though she was experiencing so much racism before that, all it took was that one comment to say, "Wow, that's really remarkable." And obviously she went on to accomplish great things. And the reason I bring that up is for a couple of reasons. One is to say that these things really do start to shape kids when they're this age, but also that I feel like it only takes a couple of instances of positivity to offset a whole bunch of negativity. Just a little bit of light will undo a lot of negativity. So my own advice, based on that example and a few other examples that I know of, is that if you've got kids who are going through a difficult time now because of this, or even of any ethnic minority who's being targeted for whatever reason or whatever event's going on at that particular point in time, just make sure you're putting them in an environment where they have an opportunity to be exposed to some positivity here and there, ideally outside of their immediate family, to help kind of offset that and remind them that they are valuable. And I think there were a couple of other really good examples that came up. The one thing, changing the topic a little bit, in terms of the one of the most common comments I've always had is, so the situation is obviously pretty serious in China, but when you actually look at how many people get the flu elsewhere, it could be a lot worse than it is right now. But people look at the reaction that's happening here in China, all the things they're doing, the number of cities they're quarantining, and they're saying that this is evidence that it's way worse than it really is. They're really reporting, because why would they quarantine so many people? And to me, that it's a really strange concept. Not only because I understand how things work here and they're very proactive here, but I was thinking about it a little bit more, and it's like, I feel like in the future, because we already have access to a lot of big data, AI-assisted mathematical formulas and things like that, and we should be able to figure out when something is happening very early on that this could be something really serious, and take the necessary actions beforehand. And I feel like one day in the future, people will look back at this time period and say, it's really funny or whatever word you want to use. I don't want to sound like I'm insulting these people, but it's really weird that people thought you had to wait until something became serious before you put massive kind of solutions in place. When actually you're supposed to put massive solutions in place beforehand so it doesn't become a big issue. So I think that's my perception on what's happening, and I feel like we probably have access to enough tools in this day and age that more places should be doing this. When we see something that's about to kind of kick off, we have these epic responses before it really gets too big. And of course, you can argue that it already is too big or it's already very serious, but I just wanted to kind of mention that as an additional point that I think people should really be thinking about. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to say. There were a few other articles, a few other things that came up, but they're a little bit more political, so I think I'm going to leave it out of this video for now. and I will just leave you with the drive around for now. So I'll speed up the drive around from this point, and yeah, let's wrap it up there. So as usual, guys, stay safe. Take all the precautions you should be taking during this time, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.